Welcome to the Healing Place podcast, a space filled with inspirational stories of hope, along with practical advice for your healing journey. Your host is Teri Wellbrock, trauma warrior, writer, speaker, blogger, therapy dog handler, and founder of the Sammy's Bundles of Hope project. As a survivor and a thriver, Teri's mission is to shine the light of hope into the world by interviewing insightful guests from across the globe. The Healing Place podcast is a fiscally sponsored project of Fractured Atlas.
Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Teri Wellbrock, and so happy to have with me today Dr. Dana, and I'm going to let her say her beautiful last name.
Philossaint.
Philossaint. Okay. Yes. It went out of my head, and I was saying it one way in my head as I was looking at all of your website and your wonderful, beautiful work in the world, and I was afraid it was going to come out of my mouth like that. So, she is lead counselor and CEO of MindCare, psychologist, social worker. Yes. Did you say medical missionary as well? Yes.
Right.
Oh my gosh, just beautiful. And I'm just so thrilled to have you here today. Our topic's going to be forgiveness, but we are going to probably steer into some other subjects according to our pre-recording conversation. So welcome. So tell everybody, yes, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Dana Philossaint. I love dealing with the mind and bringing truth to the world. And I guess one of the things that I feel compelled to do is bring in subject that people are afraid to talk about, as if there's something wrong with it, or talk about God. There's nothing wrong with talking about God and healing when we're talking about bringing a broken heart, broken mind back in unity. And so that's what I'm about. And I've traveled quite a few places, and I have been doing this work for about 21 years now. So.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, we connected on what was ACE's connection and now PACE's connection. They pulled the positivity part of it into it, added that P at the beginning. And you had written just an amazing blog piece that I resonated with and commented on, and we had a little discussion there, and I thought to myself, I have to have this beautiful soul onto the Healing Place podcast because yes, what you wrote was just so incredibly powerful. So can you just really touch upon what your philosophies are on forgiveness?
Yeah. So, if we just look at the dictionary, talk about forgiveness being something that we have to do deliberately and consciously. And one thing that I think people forget oftentimes too is it's actually a choice that we have as well. It's an optional choice, but it's more about the feeling that's involved in it as well that's ours that we tend to overlook and thinking that it has something to do with the person only. And so therefore there's a lot of a hardness of hearts and thoughts that I cannot forgive this person. But the healing comes when we acknowledge that, the Bible tells us that we are to forgive. When we actually forgive, it's a burden that's lifted off of us. And it's an opportunity for healing. I love the name of your podcast, The Healing Place. If you can take this concept of forgiveness and bring it to your own life, you will actually find that healing. The healing will start taking place, and you really start wondering, why not do it earlier? And it's a freeing burden, that burden that you're carrying for so long that just, you give that up, you give that burden up, and it feels, just as you mentioned, so much lighter.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I know for me personally, one of my most powerful moments in life was when I was 21 and 22, I was involved in two bank robberies. One, a gun was held to my head. The perpetrators got away. They stabbed my coworker with a hunting knife. Perpetrators got away, came back 3 months later to a branch, our main office where I just moved. And only this time the perpetrator who had held the gun to my head would pull the trigger and murder my coworker, Marsha Berger. Well, I always just kind of kept tabs on him through the years. I was always afraid he was going to get out and finish the job. He, didn't pull the trigger on me. And so I just would watch, and I had his prison information and his number, and I would just check and make sure he was still in. And I went in one time And this was back in, oh my gosh, I want to say 2017. And I couldn't find him. And I was like, oh my gosh. So long story long. I got a hold of the prison and they said, oh yeah, he died 3 weeks ago in prison. And I'm not kidding when I say I fell to my knees. I was in my office and fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. And my first words were, oh my gosh, I hope he found forgiveness. I hope he found, like, I'm getting goosebumps on my arms and my heart just fills with joy because I never wanted to hate him. I never wanted, because I had come to a place where I thought, what was his childhood like? Like I was starting to understand ACEs and like what did he go through? I don't know his journey, and I'm not excusing his behaviors, but I was able to come to a place of forgiveness for this little boy that he once was. And it was a very, very healing moment for he and I, because we truly were in a relationship. It was a toxic relationship, but we had been pulled together by these two events, and so I prayed for him a lot that he was able to find peace, and I hope he has.
Right, that's right. And it's not for us to figure that piece out,
Right.
Once we've done our part, I call it the heart work, heart work. Forgiveness is a heart work. And this is what HEART stands for: healthy, empathetic, admirable recovery treatment. It really is a hard work, and you put all that in there. It's very healthy. The science research has shown that when you actually forgive, there's healing that comes for you physically. Your heart is better, your lungs are better. There's, your immune system is also improving. So and there's another research that I saw which was fascinating. Just the thought of forgiveness brings healing to your body. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So there's healing in that. The empathetic part is exactly what you just mentioned. What were they going through to even conceptualize to do such, evilness to another person? So, you start feeling that empathy for them. And it's very admirable. That's another part about it. The A's for admirable. The fact that not so many people can do this forgiveness act. And it's something about it that God himself had to put in us to say, I need to forgive. And so it becomes very admirable. You're becoming like God in a sense. Only God can give us that power to forgive evil, that has been done to us. So it becomes very admirable. And then, of course, you start recovering from this injury of whatever that happened. And it's the best treatment ever, one of the best treatments. So I call it the heart work. It's definitely a heart work.
Yes, it's so beautiful. I absolutely love that acronym. Yes. And it's everything you said about it is so very true. And wow, what a weight that lifts when you're able to find. But it is, as we've discussed, a controversial subject because many people will say there's absolutely no way I will, need to forgive. I am just going to carry on. But I've talked to my sons about it a lot and said that there's this resonating anger that stays when you, or this resonating whatever it is that lingers when you cannot forgive.
That's right. It's so true. And it's a feeling that you're carrying around. The other person may not even thinking about it. May not be thinking about the thought of, I've done bad. Because if they're really that wicked, which a lot of them are, their concept of, of doing good is gone from them. And so you're wasting your time and energy, and they're living their lives in such a way. Of course, the Holy Spirit can bring conviction to them, and they can seek out forgiveness too. And that's another part too. Sometimes they will come and ask you for forgiveness. If they do that, what do you do then? Do you say, no, I'm not going to forgive you? But even if they don't ask for forgiveness, it's still our duty to do that. Again, healing cannot take place unless forgiveness is there. It's not possible. So you'll have years and years of therapy only to get you back to the same spot of, man, I need something else. And that something else is forgiveness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've heard of people do therapy treatment for years and years over, the same concept, the same thing that happened to them. And they still haven't touched that concept of forgiveness. And so this is one of the most important aspects of dealing with hurt.
Yes. Very much so. And I know I just kept being pulled to it. I kept finding myself, again, angel whispers, God signs, whatever it is you want to call it. I kept being pushed in that direction. And then, so then someone would come across my radar who would talk about writing letters of forgiveness. And so I did that and wrote letters of forgiveness to all of my perpetrators. And then somebody came across my radar that talked about Ho'oponopono Hawaiian healing, which is a prayer of forgiveness. And so I did that. And so I kept steering, it just kept coming across. And I finally was like, yeah, this is something I really need to do.
Good deal. You know, one of my favorite Bible texts on forgiveness is found in Mark 11:25 and 26. You know, a lot of time people will say that they're praying. I prayed for healing and it's just not happening. I'm still angry and bitter. But this is what this text says. It says, when ye stand praying, forgive. If you have aught against any, that your Father also, which is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses. So, I mean, that's the first thing it says. If you're going to go out there and start praying, you need to forgive. And then all these beautiful things happen. God himself will start forgiving you. And then he'll give you peace. He'll give you all of the desires of your heart, as you know, we read it in Psalm as well. And so there's that concept that we're called to do. It's actually a calling. And you mentioned it very beautifully when you said, I just felt, you know, I was coming back to that same topic, the idea of I need to forgive. Yeah, you do. We all do. And here's the thing too, because we're a human being, all of us have done wrong. All of us. And so there's aspects of our lives that we're going to need to be forgiven for. And so not that, you know, I think for us, sometimes we have this degree of, well, this is greater than this, you know, and so this hurt, you know, was probably very small what I've done. But to someone else, it might have caused them great pain, you know, because words can be very painful. Some things that we might have said that we accidentally said that we can never take back. Those are concepts that we too would probably need forgiven for. And so when we recognize just how bad humanity can be, you know, we don't always mean to do evil, but we do. All of us have. And so there's going to be times in our life that we're going to need to be forgiven. And so if you want forgiveness for your trespasses, the things that you've done wrong, you too need to be willing to forgive others the things that they've done wrong.
Oh, yes. What a beautiful way to look at it. I always talk about the energy you give out is the energy that comes back to you. So true, as you give out forgiveness,
Always.
that forgiveness can come back to you as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as soon as you were talking about that Bible verse, I grew up Catholic, so we don't know Bibles. I mean, we have the Bible, but we can't quote it. You know, it's the Catholic thing. But yeah, I think of like the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, and it talks directly about it right in that prayer of forgiving those who trespass against us. Yeah.
Something that we have to do.
Yes.
We have to be called to do that thing called forgiveness.
Yeah.
No way around it.
Right. Now, do you offer suggestions to people like for how they can start upon that journey of forgiveness?
Absolutely. And I think you're saying it right. The idea that it is a journey and we're all in different stages. And it's okay. Because as I mentioned to you too, it is actually God in us that do the forgiveness. You know, that actually allows us to forgive. We within ourselves cannot forgive. We can't do it. It's a very spiritual thing. And so I know you probably have heard of a doctor by the name of Enright. He has this model of forgiveness that he said there's this 4-step process of forgiveness. He calls the first step the uncovering process, where you're exploring the pain and the hurt that the person have done to you. And some people just get stuck there. They're just constantly going through the story and this is what this person have done. But he said, no, we're supposed to move on to the next step. The next step is, he calls it the decision phase. The decision phase is the nature of forgiveness and discussing it. The idea that it's actually a choice that I have. I have the choice to forgive or not to forgive. And it is still an option. And so you're looking at the pros and the cons of forgiveness. And as I mentioned, there's so much pro to forgiving someone. So that's that decision phase. And then he called it the next phase, the work phase, is that process of looking at empathy aspect. What in the world was that person thinking? What did they go through? You know, this idea of you hurting a person in that manner. You know, there's a saying that goes, those who hurt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I've added this part: those who hurt, but forgiveness stops the cycle. So you got to make that decision to recognize there is empathy that I need to understand. So this is a working phase. In the last phase, he calls it the deepening phase. That's when you start to make that resolution towards step by step, recognizing I need to forgive because it's healing, and I can find meaning, I can find purpose in that forgiveness process. And that purpose can be to do podcasts, to share it with others. Again, it's an admirable thing because not too many people are able to do that. A story that I think is funny now, but when I was young, I would say I can hold a grudge to no end. And I remember my cousin and I had an argument over a cat. It really was over a cat. We stopped talking for a whole year, and we lived in the same house.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just incredible that you can make up your mind not to forgive. But the same thing is true. You can make up your mind to forgive, you know? And so it's a process, yes, but it's got to be a decision. And once that decision is made, and as I mentioned, how the research is showing that your brain changes, your body physiology changes once you have the thought of forgiveness. So can you imagine when you actually execute that forgiveness, what happens then, right? So yeah, it's a process. And some people can go from phase 1 all the way down to phase 4 without a problem. Some people, probably like many people, they stay at phase 1 for a long time, and they finally move down to phase 2 and 3. Eventually, hopefully, they get to that healing place.
Yeah.
Recognize just how beautiful and meaningful it is to forgive.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing too, kind of similar to grief, at least with my own experience, and you can speak to this certainly, is sometimes we come back around to those feelings, those emotions, even when we've reached that point of forgiveness. I know for myself, I had done this forgiveness work, and then something triggered me, something came up, and I came back around and I thought, oh, I still have something lingering here with this individual. And so I did some more work on it. But you can still come back around to those trauma responses, really, to what
That's
that
true.
person had done to hurt you.
That's true. And this is where the practice comes in. We have to practice.
Yeah.
This is something that we actually, can't do on our own. But here, when I work with clients and we're doing like cognitive behavior therapy, I'll tell them to analyze their negative thoughts, of course, but then replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts. I don't stop there. I have them write those positive thoughts about that situation that they're going through on a index card. And then because I practice, Christian counseling, on the back of it, I'll tell them, find a quote, find a Bible text that solidifies that thought. Because now you want more truth than just your mere thought. You want something that's solidified. You want something that says, this is why I do what I'm thinking. This is why I'm going to think the thought that I have. And when you do that, you can walk around with those cards because, again, it's not a matter of if those negative thoughts are going to come, but when they come, you're ready. You're ready. And so you have those cards in your hand and you study that card as if your life depends on it. Because that's how negative some of us are carrying a burden we're carrying in our minds. And then you read that card over and over until you can sleep those thoughts. And thoughts can be replaceable. They are replaceable. So thoughts can be replaced, I should say. So once you start doing that, it's work. It is work. It's just, as you mentioned, it's not a matter of them coming. They will come. But the practice, you start practicing till those thoughts are yours.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. And again, just such a brilliant response, because it's true. Any of these healing modalities really are a practice, whether it's mindfulness practice, yoga, meditation. But yes, forgiveness, it really is a practice. You're changing habitual patterns, and that whole brain plasticity thing, where you're creating new pathways in the brain, new ways of thinking, instead of the anger and the sometimes hatred for a person. You can change that. Yeah.
One of the things that I tell individuals who have kids, especially, you need to teach them about forgiveness. at a young age. Did you learn about forgiveness at a young age? His for the most part, what people teach their children, hey, Bobby, you stepped on somebody's toe, go apologize. That's the level of forgiveness that a teaching that they give. But forgiveness is more than that. It's about, here, when you did what you did, what do you think Bobby felt? Go into it with that mindset of teaching them about empathy. Teach kid at a young age about a concept of empathy. Teach them at a young age a concept of, what it means to love a person so that you don't hurt. But of course, we know that, love, the one that you love the most are the one that's going to hurt you the most, right? But even still, what does that look like once that forgiveness comes? And it's not just apologize, because anybody can apologize, but
Right.
it's not.
Sorry. Yeah.
There's no heart work there, right? There's no. So you bring in that heart work, the idea that you got to constantly think about what other person, might be thinking and feeling when you do wrong. What is God thinking when you do wrong? Those kinds of things, have them to learn it at a young age, so that when it comes time for them to do this big thing called forgiveness, because other person, later on have hurt them, you're ready. They're ready.
Right.
They're inclined, I should say, to do it as well.
Yes. Oh, I remember, oh gosh, maybe 10 years ago, before I had stepped onto the healing path, my mom is incredibly spiritual. She's always praying and yes, going to daily mass at church. But she would, the subject of one of my perpetrators that had sexually molested me at 10 years old came up. And she said, oh, Teri, you just need to forgive him and let it go and move on. And I was so angry at her because I wasn't yet in a place where I was ready to do that forgiveness work. And so I think that's what the response, when we say it's taboo, a lot of times what comes up is, it's like people are just like, I'm not ready to do it. I don't want to do it. And so, but it really, really, to just emphasize, you need to keep doing the healing work so that you do get to that place where you are ready and you can say, all right, it's time for me to do some forgiveness work.
And it's not about getting over it. It's not like that. It's again, even the traumas that we go through, there's processes, I believe, that we can find meaning in all of them. And so to tell someone, oh, forget about it, just stop thinking about it, that's the wrong approach. That's the wrong approach towards forgiveness. That's causing more bitterness and anger in a person. And so we got to be mindful of our words when people are going through that process of forgiveness as well. And it is, as I mentioned, it's a heart work, and so it's got to be heartfelt. It's all about, it's a feeling. Forgiveness is actually a feeling. Once you have that feeling of resentment gone away, you realize, man, I was carrying something that I didn't even recognize was there. It's a feeling towards something that you're holding on to, and it's very negative. And so once you says, I'm done with this, I want to do this, you make that choice that I'm going to choose to do this, then you start feeling a certain way. You start feeling differently, right? But it is also the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do as well.
Yes. Well, and I wish I could put it in words. It really is a heaviness of it was like my chest felt heavy, my heart felt heavy. And once I was able to really work through that process, and it was a process over a time period, that lightness that came about. Right. And what you say is 100% accurate. It's just a transition happens, really.
That's right.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So anything else that you wanted to touch upon in this realm that we haven't had an opportunity to?
Wow. The subject of forgiveness, there's so much that can be said, but we can't be we have to be mindful, as to say, we can't forget that, we have to mention that forgiveness is not condoning. It's not just forgetting. It's not making excuses. It's not, denying the fact that something happened. It's not all of those things. And it's not getting back into a horrible relationship either. I have to put that in there. It's none of those things. it's actually something that it's a gift that we're giving ourselves. It really is a gift that we are giving ourselves, and the Lord have called us to do that. And once you make that decision to forgive, it brings new opportunity in your future. So it's giving up the hope, that you can change the past. You can't change the past, but it's bringing about a future, a brighter way of looking at things, a new beginning. And it's actually the best revenge. You've heard that before, right? So forgiveness is the best revenge. And I've heard this quote before. It says that it's setting a prisoner free and discovering the prisoner was you. So give that gift to yourself. So start forgiving. Just start forgiving everybody.
Yeah, I have not heard that quote before. How powerful and true. Yeah.
That prisoner, just go ahead and release that prisoner free. You have that power to do that.
Yeah. Because truly, when you're carrying around that resentment, that hate, that whatever it is, those feelings, it just draws more negativity towards you, because it's again, that energy you hold inside and put out into the world, it's just what keeps coming towards you and in. And as you reach that place of forgiveness, I know it certainly opened me up to more light and love and joy, because I wasn't carrying that around anymore.
Probably better sleep too, right?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. So now how do people find you, get a hold of you?
Okay. Well, they can find me at mindcare.us, www.mindcare.us, or they can give us a call at 678-632-5152. And then we also have our email address. That's talk@mindcare.us. And we actually offer a 12-day intensive outpatient program for those who are dealing with trauma. And they come in and it's a 2-hour a day program that they get 24 hours of just intensive outpatient program, including music therapy and culinary therapy and exercise and that fellowship that's needed. And of course, they get counseling sessions, individual and groups, and it's been powerful. It's been powerful to see the healing that takes place. And then for those who can't come, we also offer a 12-week program that's online. And so we're able to help individuals as well, any way that they feel comfortable, in-house or online. And so that's what we do. That's what we're about, bringing healing to those who are hurting. And it's for something that was not their fault. And sometimes it is their fault and they're holding on to this stuff. And so we help them through, we have a model that we follow called This Mind, where T stands for the plan. We provide them with ideas of thought and formalizing a plan for them. And H stands for, I love acronyms, so you'll see that.
I love acronym. I love it.
H stands for health. So we have our nurse practitioner that works with them as well on a physical level. But we talk about the health of the mind. We talk about the health of the body. We talk about the health of the soul. So that's H. I stands for identity. We show them, teach them how to find their identity. A lot of times trauma causes us to lose sight of who we are, right? We have no idea who we are, what we're about. And so we talk about identity. As to spirituality, right? There's no way around it. We talk about spirituality. That's this. And then we go mind. M stands for ministry and mission. What is your mission in life? And we discover, and they have recognized how their trauma plays a role in their ministry. I mean, it's beautiful once they get to that stage, of course. And then I, we talked about imitation, how there's a lot that goes there. But N is where we are at right now discussing. We talk about the need to forgive. So it's actually part of our acronym, the need to forgive. There's something that we show them, we analyze with them, find out what phase of this forgiveness process that they're in, and find out how to move them to the next phase and so forth. And then ultimately deep destiny. Where do we go from there? So this mind is actually an acronym that was based on Philippians 2 verse 5. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And so we use this idea of what is this mind? And so we dive into it. And within 12 days, it's been incredible to see just the transformation that can take place with individuals' lives as a result of just going through this mind.
Beautiful. Wow. You got me a little teary there for just a second. I mean, the way you related it back to a Bible verse and asked, what is this mind? What does that mean? What does it stand for? So I love it. And so the 12-week program, do people work through Zoom with you?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They use a platform. Sometimes we use Google Meet, and so we use more of a secure platform where they get different codes so that they have their own codes, and not anyone can just pop in at any stage.
Right.
So we do use a secure platform for that as well. So yeah,
Beautiful.
that's what we do.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, I love the work you're doing. I'm so glad we connected and I resonated with your blog piece. And I was again, how funny is that? I was very drawn to it when I don't read, there's just so much amazing information on PACE's connection. But for whatever reason, I came across yours and it just, I felt like I had to read it. And so I did. And then I felt like I had to comment. So I did. And yeah, that forgiveness part is just, it's been key in my journey. So yeah.
Good, I'm glad. And so many people can find that freedom too, if they only knew. And sometimes they need that person to walk alongside with them to help them. But we all need to recognize just the importance of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, we've covered a lot. I could talk about forgiveness for, a day or two with you. So yeah. All right. Well, it's just been a joy having you here. Thank you for sharing your beautiful insights and the work you're doing to help others along their healing journey.
Praise the Lord for that. Thank you so much. And I'll be keeping your ministry in our prayers as well, as you're doing a great work. You're doing a great work to bring this information out that so many people need to know.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening today to the Healing Place podcast with your host and trauma warrior, Teri Wellbrock. If you enjoyed this episode and want to learn more about Teri, her mission, and the Hope for Healing journey, visit Teri's website at www.teriwellbrock.com. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and offering your reviews on our YouTube channel, audio outlets, and Facebook page. And as Teri reminds us, until next time, remember, be gentle with yourself.